the mitzvah of Sefiras Haomer, so it's very topical. And so we'll do, this was advertised, Sefiras Haomer and Kovod Habrios. So just to begin, so we have the pasuk in Parshas Emor, Sfartim Lachem, and the Gemara in Samachei Amud Beis says, Usfartim Lachem darshans that Lachem should take Sfira L'kol Echad Ve'echad, right? And Sfira L'kol Echad Ve'echad means that everyone has to count, not like you have the other countings, like the counting of Shemitah and Yovel, where the Beis Din make that count, but here it's an individual count. So there's one of the discussions right away in the beginning of Siman Tuf Peites, and everything we're discussing is from Siman Tuf Peites, is do you have to count yourself, or is it enough to hear the Chazan count? So for most areas in halacha, we have a concept called Shomea Ke'on, right? So we're by Kiddush, it's, not everyone has to make their own Kiddush. It's enough that the Balabais makes Kiddush and everyone hears him, and it's like they said it. So do we see the same thing? So have the Levush and the Chok Yaakov, they learn no. This Sefiras Haomer is unique. The Gemara says, Sfira. Can you hear me? Am I audible? Okay. So they learn that no, this is unique because the Gemara says Sfira L'kol Echad Ve'echad, that everyone has to count themselves, and you can't just hear the Sfira, the counting from someone else. However, the Pri Chadash argues and says no. If you Shemeh Koine means if you heard it, it's like you counted. So even though the Gemara says you have to have a Sfira L'kol Echad Ve'echad, so by hearing it, it's like you said it, and therefore you would be yoitza. So the nafkamina is going to be if a person was in shul, he didn't count, or not in shul, wherever you were sitting, someone in your house counts, and you just heard them count, but you didn't count yourself. Were you yoitza or not? So according to the first opinion, the Levush and the Chok Yaakov, you wouldn't be yoitza, but according to Pri Chadash, you would be yoitza. And we're going to have a practical example of this soon. Yeah? Okay. Okay. Well, any questions? Okay. So like this. So we have a famous Toisus, Samach Vav Amud Beis, and almost all the halachas. Sorry, Samach Vav Amud Aleph in Menachos, and almost all the halachas of Sefiras Haomer learned from this one Toisus. And we're going to speak a little bit about Tmimus. So, right, we have many Tmimim here. So from the Tmimim, we'll learn about Tmimus, and awesomeness. Aaron, you'll speak about that other type of Tmimus. But we will speak to, so the Bahag, at the end of Toisus, the Bahag says that in Hifsik Yom Echad, V'loy Safar, there's a famous Bahag, the Baal Halachas Gedolah says, if there was one day that you missed, he says, Shuv Eino Soifer. If you missed one day, then you cannot continue counting, Mishum de Boy Tmimos, right? And it's very simple. The Pasuk says, Tmimois Tiena, and so the Bahag learns from there that you have to have every single day. If you missed one day, that it's finished. Obviously, one full, complete day. Comes along Toisus and says, the Tema Gdoilahu V'lo Yitachen. Right? Toisus totally rejects it. He says, it's a Tema Gdoila, it's a Tumia, it's a wonder to say that you need every single day, that you need to, that's Pshat and Tmimus. And it's interesting that Toisus doesn't even say why he rejects it. He just says, it's wrong. You don't need Tmimus. And so this is a famous machloikis. So, and just to give a little bit more oasis to this, the Rush quotes us the name of the Ri. He says they hold that every day is a mitzvah bifnei atzma, right? So according to Bahag, it's like a chain, and you need every single day, like a sharsheris, and you can't, or a ladder. You need all the rungs. And according to the Ri, Toisus, every day is a separate mitzvah. So according to the Ri, if a person was at Lag Boimer, what is this advertised? 18 for 18, and he's going to get all inspired that he wants to count the rest of Sfira. He can count. He can start counting from 34, 35 with a bracha, right? Because, and even if the last day, day 49, he's Erev Shvu, he's inspired to count, he can make a bracha because there's no connection between the days. Okay, so how do we paskin? So in the big Shulchan Aruch, yes.
When you talk about Tmimus, I came late. I'm sorry. Are we talking about Tmimus of counting Sphero like in a row? Is that what we're talking about here? I came in the middle.
I can't hear you.
Are we talking about counting Sphero? Is that the topic? Like having to count?
I can't. It's not clear. You're being cut off. Can you hear me clearly?
I can hear. Can you hear me? How about now?
Well, he's asking if you're talking about when you say Tamimus, you're talking about counting Sphira consecutively.
Sorry, okay. Just to make it clear, Tamimus here means, to recap. So we're holding the Bahag. Baal HaLachas says you need every day has to be consecutive. If you miss one day, it's finished. Right? According to the Ri, every day is a mitzvah bifnei atzma. Right? So we're going to discuss.
Last point, Spoo, you could translate for me, Rabbi Shlomo. Can you ask Rabbi Stern if you would like me to pack him up some vegetables in a silver foil to take home and maybe share with his wife?
Did you hear that? Did you hear that, Michoel?
Is that a downgrade? No barbecue anymore? Now we go down to vegetables because of the situation?
Mendy, we're not booking any tickets these days.
Chaf Dalet and Chaf Hey. It's like this. So what happened now? How do we paskin? So the Shulchan Aruch is choishish. We are choishish for the Bahag. What does it mean we're choishish for the Bahag? It means we take both considerations we take both opinions. According to Bahag, if a person missed if he missed a day, then there's no point in counting the rest of the days because it's finished, right? It's got to be consecutive. According to the Ri, even if you miss days, you can continue with a bracha. So we know Sefiras, the Shulchan Aruch says, everyone knows. So if we miss, then we continue counting without a bracha. So because we're choishish for the Bahag, so we don't make a bracha when we count the subsequent days, but we're still passing like the Ri that we keep counting. If it was only so then comes the alternatives, and I think Chafei is what happens, and this is fascinating. What happens though? That's all if you know for a fact you didn't count the previous day. You know for a fact that you didn't count. Let's say last night was 27, right? So if you know for a fact that you didn't count 27, then comes along tonight 28, so you cannot continue with a bracha, right? Because that's it. You need tamimus. But what happens if you're mesupuk, if you're not sure if you counted the previous night? And really, it's not only if you're not sure if you counted, you're not sure if you counted the right number, right? So if you have a suffix, so then you have what the Alter Rebbe calls a sfeik sfeika. And this is from the Trumas Edition. He says you have a sfeik sfeika. What's a sfeik sfeika? I'm not sure if I counted last night. Maybe I counted, maybe I didn't count. Even if I didn't count, then maybe the halach is like the Ri, not like the Bahag, and I don't need every single night. It doesn't need to be consecutive. And because you have this sfeik sfeika, right, this double doubt, therefore you are able to continue with a bracha. Fascinating that the sfeik sfeika enables us to count. There is a letter in Chelik Yud Zayin, right? Chelik Yud Zayin, and look at the Sichas page 466. And the Rebbe discusses this, Sfeik Sfeik. This, he says, there's a Shol Meshiv, the famous Yosef Shol Natanzim. The Shol Meshiv asks, we have a halacha. Within 30 days, when it comes to doing changes in davening, why don't we say, within 30 days, you didn't count. It should be a vada you didn't count, right? Within 30 days. Anyway, the Rebbe brings that question, and then he brings also from different achronim, they say like this, we don't make a bracha on a sfeik sfeika. There's a discussion. If there's a sfeik sfeika, can you make a bracha on a sfeik sfeika, right? So there quotes Techamed, another svarim, that if you have a sfeik sfeika, even if there's two sfeikas, right, a double doubt, we don't make a bracha. But nonetheless, and the Rebbe says, even though yesh lefalpel, why this is different, but the fact is the pilpul does not change the psak bar, but Shulchan Aruch, that the psak bar is that even if you have a sfeik sfeika, we make a bracha. still, as long as we have the Sveka. Okay, so we might come back to Sveka in a few minutes, but here is the part that we're going to get about the Kovod Habrios. So we started off, let's begin like this. So this was in 1980. So someone asked, there was a rabbi named Rabbi Moshe Halberstam, and he's one of the Einik of the Divrei Chaim, and he was a big poisek in Yerushalayim for the Eidach Haredis. There's a story that once he was by the Rebbe for Yechidus, and the Rebbe asked him, what type of shilas do you get in Yerushalayim? And so the Rebbe said jokingly, he said that here in America, he says, because everyone reads from left to right, so all the questions are in Velas. All the questions, Rabbi, my Yortzeit candle blew out. What do I do? He didn't say that. All the questions. Ask the beginning of your day. All the questions are only on the end of your day. So the Rebbe said he wanted to know what questions he gets. So, okay, but this happens to be a question on a Velas. Anyway, their parent died in Chutz La'aretz. They accompanied the Aron to Eretz Yisrael, right? They were being buried in Eretz Yisrael, and they were in Oinen. And Oinen is between the death and the burial. So the halacha is that they do not do any mitzvahs, right? Any positive mitzvahs. They're not allowed to make any brachas. And so this person did not count Sefiras Haomer. He didn't know what to do. He asked someone else to count for him and to be moitzi him. Okay. So then he heard it from Sefiras. Now he's the chazan. He's good. Corona, right? Where the shul was happy, the chazan, and he wants to know, can he make the bracha because he missed a full day. But on the other hand, he heard it from someone else. So what's the story? Because it'll be very uncomfortable for him, right? For the entire Sefiras Haomer, for the whole, he'll have to step down from the Amud and let someone else count. So the Divrei Moshe, Rabbi Halberstam, he says like this. He says, first off, he made a mistake. He should have, the Norah Yehuda says that even though an Oinen doesn't do mitzvahs, he should have counted without a bracha, because since it affects what will be after the Aninos, so he should have counted anyway, so he made a mistake. But what about the fact that he heard someone else count and listen? So that's what we start off with. So could you be Yotzei Sefiras Haomer through Shomea Koine? Because we said before, it says Usfartem Lachem, and you have to count. Sfir L'Kol Echad Echad. So he says, it's Machlokes, right? As we said before, the Chok Yaakov and the Lushay, you can't be Yotzei through hearing. The Pri Chadash says you could be. By the way, the Alter Rebbe Paskins Mikra, then you could be Yotzei through Shomea Koine. Anyway, so he says, but that's all, that Machlokes is in a regular case. But here, which is hearing from someone else. It's like what they call tarte l'reusa. It's like you have two things against you. He heard it, which is a machlokes, and he's an oinen, which is not mechuyev. So therefore he said, finito, it's finished. He cannot continue, right? He cannot continue making a bracha now. Okay, so then he says, well, maybe there's another eitzah. So maybe because he's going to be the chazan, he's davening from the amud, he can ask someone there, and Shuli says, do me a favor. It's very embarrassing for me. I'm the chazan. You don't make the bracha, and I will make for you, right? So maybe we could do that. And he quotes, they bring Rav Tzvi Pesach Frank, which was a Rav of Yerushalayim. Also, he brings the story that the Beis Halevi, the famous Reb Chaim of Brisk, his father, the Beis Halevi, once he was not holding with the Omer. He missed counting, right? You're wondering how is that possible? Anyway, he wasn't holding with the counting, and he once did that. So he asked someone else if they wouldn't count, so he could be moitzi them and make the bracha for them. So, but he says it doesn't work. He says that's wrong. Why is it wrong? It's not the right thing. Because there's a famous Yerushalmi, and this is brought in Megillah, and the Yerushalmi says a ben krach can't be moitzi ben ir, which means you have, right now, if you're in Bnei Brak, Tel Aviv, you do Purim on the 14th, and in Yerushalayim it's the 15th. So could someone from Yerushalayim come on the 14th and lay in the Megillah for people in Bnei Brak, or vice versa? Could someone from Bnei Brak come and lay in the Megillah for people in Yerushalayim? So you have different days, right? So the Yerushalmi says you cannot do that, because if you're from Yerushalayim and you came, for you it's Erev Purim in Bnei Brak, you're not mechuyev. So you're not mechuyev b'davar, and if you're not mechuyev b'davar, then you can't moitzi someone which is mechuyev. It works both ways. So this is referred to in halacha as ben krach and moitzi ben ir, and the Pri Chadash paskins like this, and therefore he says that's the issue over here. If you're not holding with the count, right, you missed it. So, and we are choshish for the bahag, that means you're out. So how could you get up in shul and be moitzi every other people which are holding with the count? You're like an eina mechuyev b'davar. You're not obligated, so you can't be moitzi other people which are mechuyev. So this is a question which many of the achronim ask. The Pri Chadash says this, and they ask, and therefore they say, "Hey, how did the Beis Levi do what he did?" And so there's different answers. Tzvi Pesach Frankie says that's not an issue. He says, of course, you're mechuyev. Why are you mechuyev? Because like Arvus, Kol Yisrael Arevim Zebazeh, right? Arvus, just like you could be moitzi someone in Kiddush, right? His obligation is my obligation. So that's one approach. But so some say that you can do it anyway. Mordechai. So some say there's still Arvus. You're not an eina mechuyev b'davar. Of course you're mechuyev, just because you're not holding with the count. But anyway, the Moshe Halberstam, he's choishish for the opinions that say that you could, like the Pri Chadash, that you can no longer, if you can't count, you can't moitzi someone else. And therefore, he says, what can you do? But then he says, this is fascinating. Then he says, Ad Khan, he says, I need to announce, everything that we've said till now is according to Shulchan Aruch, right? That Shulchan Aruch is choishish for the Bahag, which says you need all the days. But he says, I heard many times from Hagoyin at Tzaddik, Reb Moshe Arya Freund, which was the Gaivid of Yerushalayim, and he said that it's Mekubal. He has a Kabbalah from the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz, which this person writing, Moshe Halberstam, is, I think this is Chesed Halberstam's uncle, right? Anyway, it was from 770. Anyway, so he says, and they're all, of course, from they're all the way from the Divrei Chaim. There's a story about Chesed Halberstam, which the Rebbe said something to the Rebbetzin, like he's Banshak, Bananshal Kedoshim. They're all from the Divrei Chaim. And so he says, he said there's a Kabbalah from the Divrei Chaim of Tzanz, that even if you miss a day, you still count, even if you miss a full day. Anyway, so, and therefore everything, al pi halacha, he can't count. But we have a Kabbalah from the Divrei Chaim that he can still count. And so fascinating. And then on the bottom, he says, Ayin shoot Shevet Levi. He says, look what the Shevet Levi writes. So there's a famous case, and so of the Shevet Levi, Rav Vosner, Chelik Gimel Simon Tzadik Vav. And this is very famous, and the Shevet Levi has a case like this. He says there was a Rav Manhig Be'iroi, right? Big rabbi, leading a congregation, and he forgot Sefiras Omer one day because he was not holding with the count, because he didn't daven in shul. That's what happens when a person doesn't daven in shul. And Rav Vosner says, and he asked me, I was asked by him, what should he do with the other days? Because apparently in the Welt, the Rav is the one that counts, right? The rabbi of the shul, he counts every night, not the Baal Tefillah. And he says, if the Rav will not count, there's Kovod Torah, there'll be bizoyan if he won't count. So what should he do? So it says Rav Vosner, fascinating. He says, B'makom hadchak kazeh, in such a shas hadchak like this, he says, then you can rely on the Rishonim. In other words, the Ri, not the Bahag, that say every day is a mitzvah b'fnei atzma, and he can continue counting with a bracha, right? And even though, and it's known that there were Gedolim which did this, right? They did this, they continued with a bracha even though they missed. And even though a person shouldn't do this in a regular case, because Shulchan Aruch, right? Shulchan Aruch, the Mechaber, the Alter Rebbe, the Siddur, they all are concerned. They're choishish for the Bahag that you need. It's got to be consecutive, and you cannot continue with a bracha if you missed a full day. Nonetheless, he says, but here, b'kagavna, we've got Kovod Torah here. There's Kovod Tzibor. because people also feel bad. It's uncomfortable that the rabbi has to step down and can't make the bracha. And therefore, he says, look in Siman Tzadik Beis. Look what the Bir Halacha speaks about. So Siman Tzadik Beis, in Shulchan Aruch, it speaks about a case. Siman Tzadik Beis is speaking a very important siman. What happens when you need the bathroom and you have to daven, right? What can you do? So Shulchan Aruch speaks about all the details, right? How long do you have to be able to hold yourself in to be able to daven? And nonetheless, so the Bir Halacha, right in the Mishnah Berurah, he quotes, he says, in certain cases, if you're a shliach tzibur, because Shulchan Aruch is talking about you're a regular guy, so just you need a bathroom, you take off your tefillin, go to the bathroom. But says the Bir Halacha, what if you're the shliach tzibur, you need the bathroom, and it's right before Chazaras Hashatz, right? Could you imagine you're just going to step out for 15 minutes? You're going to step out. It's going to be embarrassing, right? It could be very humiliating, and everyone knows you went to the bathroom. So anyway, he's got a whole riches here. This is the beginning of Siman Tzadik Beis, but the bottom line is he says in such a case, he could rely on opinions, rishonim, which are not brought in Shulchan Aruch. And it's a fascinating concept that sometimes that in halacha will fall back on rishonim, even though the Shulchan Aruch rejected them. And so he says, look, there were Michoel, even though it's considered a to'eva, right? But there's an idea of Kovod Habrios there, and he says, how much more so? Here it's a machlokes rishonim, and it's known what the Shach writes. The Shach writes in Siman Reish Mem Beis that when there's Kovod Habrios, right? When there is Shas Adchak and a Derabanan, you could rely on a Das Yachid, right? We're revealing all the secrets here. But there's in the back of Siman Reish, and Yoreh Deah Siman Reish Mem Beis, so the Shach has what's called Kitzur Hanhagas Hayras Isser Beheter, right? A Kitzur and had a paskin, and he says in Siman and Sif Hey, it's very interesting. So, everyone here has learned Shulchan Aruch before, and in Shulchan Aruch it brings all the different opinions. So you're like, why is the Mechaber bringing multiple opinions here? Especially, usually we say Stam v'yesh halacha Stam. The halacha follows the first opinion. So what if the halacha follows the first opinion? Why would he bring the Yesh Oimrim, which is more lenient? So the Shach says it's known because sometimes if there's a Shas Achak, right, then it's a Derabanan, then we could rely on a more lenient opinion, right? So, yes?
Sorry.
So says, yes, hello?
No. Mistake.
So says, am I clear? Okay, so says so that's what, so Rav Razor is bringing us from the Shach. What do we see from the Shach? That we will, when it's a Shas Adchak, we will rely on minority opinions within halacha, even ones which are, now it's a stretch, because the Shach is talking about minority opinions which are brought on the Shulchan Aruch, right? You see them, then more. But what the Shevet Labor in Shulchan Aruch here does not bring the Bahag as like an option, even a lesser option. So it's very interesting what he's doing. But anyway, that's his psak. That it's a Shas Achak, so he can be Michoel. Now,
can you repeat that last part once, just briefly? You cut out for a second.
Sorry. So once the Rav Vosner says that when there's a Shas Achak, that one can rely on, it's a Derabanan, one could rely on minority opinions, which we generally do not follow. And I was just mentioning that the context in the Shach is that it's a Yesh Oimrim, which is brought like in the Shulchan Aruch itself, but over here the Bahag is not brought as a Yesh Oimrim. But we do use them, as we said before, we use them in the Sveika, where you're not sure if you counted the previous day. So that's a fascinating psak which is brought, and his main consideration is Kovod Habrios and Kovod HaTorah. So there's a brand new sefer that just came out just this past year, and this is from Yalkut Yosef on Moedim. So basically, this is from the chief Sephardic rabbi of Israel right now, Yitzchak Yosef, Rav Avadia's son, and it's fascinating. It's very interesting, and it used to be the old set of Yalkut Yosef. All of Yom Tov was in this one thin volume, and now each volume, and now it's coming out. Just each Yom Tov this is like about 1,000 pages. Anyway, it's So just on Sefiras Haomer, 1,000 pages. It's so interesting. It has got everything under the sun, right? So pure Tainug. Anyway, so he argues on this psak. He says, no. He says, no way. He says, if the rabbi is embarrassed, he says, he gives an eitzah. The rabbi should find an important member of the congregation and tell him, we want to honor you. We would like to be with, but he says, you can't be Michoel not to count and be moitzim. He says it's very surprising. So Rav Vosner doesn't say, you know what? Ask somebody, do the eitzah, ask somebody in shul not to count, and you'll count for them. He just says the rabbi could just make the bracha continue. So he says, so he's choylek on that psak, and okay, and it's very fascinating. Just one interesting thing he does ask, but he asks there, he says, but l'chora, we have, not only do we have a space, maybe that every day is a mitzvah, right? Number two, maybe the halacha is not like the Pri Chadash. Maybe there is arvus, and maybe even though the rabbi is not holding with the sefira or the chazan, but he could be moitzi, he could discharge other people which are holding by the sefira if he asks one of them not to make the bracha, right? And he says, and we have a third suffix. He says, a third suffix, he says, which is fascinating, is maybe, he says, the Bir Halacha, the Mishnah Berurah brings for the Bir Halacha, opinion that says, this is from the Ritz Geis. The Ritz Geis says, if you miss a day of Sefira, let's say this, so he's like this. The Ritz Geis says, last night was 27, tonight is 28. And he can continue. Right? So, and he brings the guess, which is very interesting. Last night, was 27. Tonight, 29, and then the Ritz Geis would allow you to count. And that would, according to Ritz Geis, a person could he missed a week of counting. 7 days ago, it was 20. 6 days ago, it was 21, right? And he can catch up and then continue with the bracha. He says it's very nice, but he says this is not really accepted by the poskim, and it's not really brought, and therefore, the concept of sfeik is fascinating. Making double sfeikus, but it's got to be, you can't take out two opinions which are too exotic, right? So that's basically the gist of things. Another thing, if we're speaking about the Bahag right now, so people might recognize from Yeshiva once in a while, at least not recently, but this is a publication from Adas. They put out the halachas, I think, from Diane Katz. And this is from a couple of years ago. I picked this up. And it says here like this: if a person missed a full day, right? So there's an eitzah to continue counting. And they say, he brings, in Australia, he says in Australia, you can go to the beach. And if you go to the beach, then according to the Chazon Ish, if people are familiar with the whole date line, so according to the Chazon Ish, the date line goes all the way in the middle of Australia. Anyway, we're not going to go the whole date line, but the bottom line is, according to the Chazon Ish, if you go out to the water, so it's like the previous day, right? And this is why there are some people in our community, they will not go to, what's the place where you have to cross the bridge? They won't go there on Sunday. Phillip Island, yeah? So because they say that if you go to Phillip Island on Sunday, so it's really Shabbos there. So he says, if you go to the water, then it's the previous day, and you just count without a bracha, and then you can continue with the bracha. Okay, obviously we would not follow this because we don't accept the opinion of the Chazon Ish on the date line. But anyway, but that's just.
I have a question quickly.
Yeah.
Theoretically, if we did accept it, or if you were on an island that was next to the date line, we'd have an issue as well because we have an issue with crossing the date line.
That's right. That's, if you're really from, there's a sefer called, forgetting the name, by Rav Harfinus. It's quite a famous, it's still being, anyways, a Satmar Dain in Williamsburg, and he writes that you shouldn't travel to Australia for Shabbos. Because
Yeah, a lot of
even
people don't go to Hawaii for Shabbos for that reason.
Yeah, but he says Australia. Anyway, okay, so anyway, we'll any more questions till now? Okay, well, just one last thing on the Bahag. So they're standing safer on Sh'arim Tzir Bala from Rabbi. Was the grandfather, and this was printed, I think, in the 1950s. Anyway, so it's on the Kitzur. This is Simon Kufchaf. And so he quotes the Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, and then he quotes on the bottom, he says, the Beis Shlom says, really, we should really paskin against the Bahag. We should paskin that if you skip a full day, that you can continue with the bracha, right? Because that's the Iker. That's the Iker. But it's just that since the Psak of Shulchan Aruch has been accepted, we shouldn't change the minhag. And he quotes also from, there were many tzaddikim of the Baal Shem Tov that they paskin that you continue with the bracha if you miss. And he says, and I heard the reason. Why would these Talmidei Baal Shem Tov say to continue with the bracha even though you missed a full day? He says, because, he says, Loi ki yamim rishonim ki yam achronim. These days are not like the olden days. In the olden days, people were careful with Sefiras Haomer, and if they forgot to count a full day, then they would continue without a bracha. Because they understood that brachas are not me'akev, right? If you do a mitzvah without the bracha, you're still doing the mitzvah. But bizmanenu, he says, Shayadus charedus yoredus plois, right? Yiddishkeit is sunk all the way down. And today, if you will tell a person to count without a bracha, then they'll say, without a bracha, then I'm not doing the mitzvah, right? It doesn't count. And they won't be careful to continue counting. And that's why they paskin, the Talmidei Baal Shem Tov, they paskin that if someone missed a day, tell them just continue counting with a bracha, because since that's the most Rishonim hold like that. Just on that note, there's a similar thing. Someone who was in communist Russia, the only time they could put on tefillin was very, very early before Elois HaShachar, before even way before sunrise. And they asked Reb Moshe, what should we do? And Reb Moshe said, tell the person that they can put on tefillin. And they had no time the entire day to put on tefillin, not even 1 minute. So Reb Moshe said that they can put on tefillin, and it really should be without a bracha, right? But if you tell them to do it without a bracha, then they'll just think it doesn't count, so they won't do it at all. So Reb Moshe said, even though it was pitch dark, right? Since they're up, they're not going to fall asleep, and we know the reason why you're not supposed to put on tefillin at night, right? Because you might fall asleep and pass gas anyway. So it's not going to happen. So Reb Moshe used the same logic. He could put on tefillin with a bracha. So anyway, that is a few aspects of the machloikis between the Ri and the Bahag. And just to reiterate, to summarize, the Alter Rebbe is choshish for the Bahag, which means if a person forgot to count the night before, and last night he didn't count 27, and he forgot the entire day, and tonight at 9 o'clock he's like, oh my goodness, I never counted, then it's too late. He cannot continue counting with a bracha. If he was not sure, if there's any doubt, then he continue counting with the bracha, because we have the sfeik as we mentioned in the Bahag. If he is, what happens if he remembers tonight at during Bein HaShmashos? So in other words, right before Tseis, and he counts quickly without a bracha, then after Tseis he can continue with a bracha. That's a machlokas, but we're mekel. And finally, the last eitzah for a person who was mekel, and this is brought in Rav Ashkenazi of Kfar Chabad Alav Shalom. So he has a daf of halacha. So he said an eitzah for a person who missed out is you can count with one of your children under bar mitzvah, right? Under bar mitzvah, they're mechuyev in chinuch. So if a person has it, they could count with them. You could, because you're doing chinuch, and you'll make the bracha with them, right? As long as they're under bar mitzvah, and then that's every night. You could just make the bracha with them, and so that way you're making the bracha. Okay? Does anyone have any questions? Any questions? Any questions? No? Okay, crystal clear. Everyone, have a wonderful day. Stay healthy. Mashiach now. Okay.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Stern. Most appreciated. Great share.
Thank you, Shlomo Baba, for doing such great work. and Rabbi Stern.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Stern. Thank you, Spoo. Much appreciated.
Okay, thank you, everyone. Thank you all for joining. Okay.
Rabbi Shlomo. Shlomo?
Yes, I am.
If one wants to get